Senator Torres, but also the Israeli embassy, and my publisher, Orly Bagel, who is filming me and recording me. Okay, now I would like, first of all, there's another reason why I'm happy to be here. It's also for the opportunity to meet you. Because we live in the same country, but we travel a lot, we are very busy, and I had no opportunity to meet Eshkol. Now it's a good opportunity for me too. I have published a book in France 3 years ago, a graphic novel called The Second Generation, Things I Never Told to My Father. The book has been now published by Orly Bagel in Spanish, La Segunda Generación. I cannot read the subtitle. Lo bueno le conte a papa. Okay. Good? I'm not Spanish speaking, my sons are speaking Spanish, not me. And I want to tell you a little about the book, but not too much, no spoiler, and to continue what you were telling. You were telling, Eshkol, that one of the things that you want to explain here is how is life in Israel. But the question that I'm asked when I'm abroad is another question. The question is, why do I live in Israel? I was born in Belgium. My grandparents were born in Poland. So what made me decide one day when I was 20 to leave Belgium and to settle in Israel? And not only that, we live now in a period of migration. You have probably listened about what is happening in Europe. The problem of migration, the so-called problem, or emigration. And actually, when I emigrated to Israel in '74, I was a student in Belgium. I was studying architecture. Emigrating to Israel for a Jew is not like emigrating to another land. Why? Migrants who are coming today from Iraq and Syria to Europe, and they wish to be in Germany or in other countries, they are leaving their own motherland because they are in danger, they have no future, they have no hope, they lost family members, they lost their houses probably, they have no job, no money, and they are searching for a better life in another place. For me, that was just the contrary. I was a happy Jewish Belgian. And Belgium, I don't know if you know Belgium, but Belgium is the land of chocolate, beer, French fries, and comics. So I was a chocolate eater, a beer drinker, and a comics reader. So I was a happy Belgian. But I knew that I was somehow different from the other boys at school. Because I was a Jew, because my father and all his family were arrested in Belgium in '42 by the Gestapo. They were taken to Auschwitz and other camps, and they were all killed, all assassinated and burned and gassed, and my father is the only one who survived. So I knew that this family story makes me different from the others. Not because I was a religious Jew, I'm not a religious. I'm sorry to tell, I don't want to hurt anything, I don't believe in God. I cannot pray, I cannot. I go to synagogue because this is part of my tradition, of my folklore, but I cannot talk to God. God to me does not exist, because when my father survived the camps, the horror of the Holocaust, he told me when I was a boy, God does not exist. Because if God had existed, Auschwitz would not have existed. So that was for me, I had an answer to a question that I even haven't asked for. So this is my way of defining myself. I was a Belgian. Poland was not a place to me because my grandparents escaped in the early 20s because of the pogroms against the Jews. They wanted probably to go to America, but it was too far. So they settled in Belgium. That was a coincidence of history. I was born there, but when I understood, when I was 15, that I'm definitely a Jew and that nor Belgium and nor Poland is my place, and I visited that year in '69. I visited Israel for the first time, I simply had the feeling that the land is calling me, that the land is talking to me and telling, this is your land. And when I came back to Belgium, after August, I had a 2 months wonderful vacation with a group of young Belgian Jewish. We worked the land in the kibbutz, we visited Jerusalem and other places. We were in the Dead Sea, in the Mediterranean Sea, in the Red Sea. That was a wonderful holiday. I said to my parents, when I grow up, I will to settle in my land. And they agreed. They understood. I was too young. They were probably that he will forget. He's not serious. But it happened. Now, so emigrating to Israel for a Jew is going to your motherland. You're not escaping your motherland. And it's going to Israel forever. Which means when I was in Israel as a new immigrant, Israeli, let's say native, were telling me, we are not really from here, and if there are any problems, you have a place to go to. We don't have, because we were born here. And what I was answering them is that you haven't chosen to born here. I've chosen to settle here, to make my life here. This is the difference. And Belgium, to me, today, does not exist anymore as a place to make a life. And I still love Belgium a lot. And its culture, and the food, and the chocolate, and the beer, everything. But that was a decision. What is funny is that I was sure that me and my older sister, because we both moved to Israel, she was older than I, she moved in 70 and I moved in 74. We were sure that we were the first Kichka to settle there. And then we discovered, by coincidence, that our grandparents left lodge in Poland in 1930, a long time before Hitler, to settle in Palestine, which became Israel. And that they are buried in Tel Aviv. And my father did not know. Because in the Holocaust, so many families were destroyed. So many genealogical trees were burned, that people did not know exactly where they come from, what were their own family stories. I guess that most of you know their genealogy. I knew nothing. I even did not know what was the name of my grandfather. I did not know when he died. And he had no sepulture, he had no tomb, because he was burnt in Auschwitz. So this is what makes me a second generation young boy. And when I settled in Israel, I also, you were talking about Hebrew, that in each of your sentences, the Bible is between the words. To me, Hebrew was new. My mother language is French. I'm from the French-speaking part of Belgium. And when I arrived to Israel, I had a 6-month school for free. All the new immigrants have this. And to me, that was a total discovery. And today, after 41 years that I live in Israel, I think I can say that I speak the two languages at the same level. And somehow, Hebrew became my mother language, because I use more Hebrew in my day-to-day life than French. Because Hebrew belongs to my motherland. So it's, to me, very interesting to be a bicultural. Now, in the book, that I will not tell the story, but this is an introspection, autobiographical story to try to understand what means being the son of a survivor of Auschwitz. What made me the man I am through the story of my father. And in this book, there's a lot of humor. Why humor? First of all, I'm a cartoonist, and humor is a tool, is a weapon against extremism. You heard what happened in France now, and in January in Charlie Hebdo. Humor is very important, and my father, who has suffered so much, had a very special Jewish humor. For example, when he was eating the soup at home, we were sitting all the family, we were 4 kids, my mother and my father. To say my mother that the soup was good, instead of saying, Lucia, her name was Lucia, Lucia, your soup is delicious, he was saying, your soup is better than the one I eat in Auschwitz. That was a compliment, okay? So this is the humor I received as a boy, a twisted way to look at reality. My father also is 90, by the way. He's going to be 90, he lives in Brussels. He's alive, he's a widow, my mother passed away 15 years ago. He's still very strong. His head is okay. If he's an example of what I will be later on, that's a good example. He's a funny man, but he had two parts in him. He had the part who has suffered so much. He came out of the camps as a broken man, and he tried all his life to reconstruct himself and to build a family. And to build a family, like a lot of the survivors in the world, he did not tell us his story. He could not tell us. And he also has decided between himself and himself that to protect us, it will be better that we don't know his story, because it is impossible to tell it. And so this is what is called in literature, or in science, in research, that I grew up in the post-trauma of the trauma of my father. And this is what characterized all my generation, because when I arrived in Israel, and when I grew up, I discovered a fact that was not existing in Belgium, that around me were 100,000 second generation young men and women like me, who had identical stories or stories that look alike, and that it was not only my little personal story, that was the story of a whole generation. How was it possible to survive for the survivors after the war, to build family, and how was it possible for us to develop ourselves in the shade, in the shadow of the day-to-day soup from Auschwitz? So, I had another trauma in my family, which is in the center of the book, and this is also very common to this generation. In the generation of the second generation, there are a high quota of suicide. This is a fact. And I had my little brother who suicided. And to me, that was my first time to deal with death. My father had to deal with death every day during 3 years. He saw in his life thousands of death. And he almost died by himself, at least half a dozen times. And to me, that was the first time I was to face it. And this is also the time when my father, because of this strong shock, decided to tell his story. And at that moment, I was so deep in my own suffering of losing my little brother, who I was his protector and his mentor. He was admiring me. I was his hero. He was younger, smaller, and weaker than I. So I could not listen to my father's story, because the timing was not the good timing for me. I was not ready to listen to him. And the book tells about how at the end I listened to his story, I read his book, because he wrote a book, and at the end the book is about resilience, which means how could I construct myself in the shade of history, how could I find humor in a second generation story to make a creation with emotion, but also with a lot of laughter. The last 2 pages of the book is a dinner that we had at home, in my home in Jerusalem, with my 3 boys and my sister, and my father who came to visit from Belgium, and that was an evening of jokes on the Holocaust. And between ourselves, that was okay to joke on it. We could laugh on it, because we knew that it was liberating us. It was not a negative thing, it was a positive thing. And then, I tell you a little spoiler, this is the last page of the book. We were laughing, and we drank some good Israeli wine. We have good wine in Israel, by the way. And my wife came back from her training. She was training in karate. She's a black belt. And she came with the kimono of the black belt. She enters the kitchen where we were eating, and she said, "What's happening over here? I hear you laughing till the end of the street." My street is not so long, but till the end of the street, she heard us, and I said, Olivia, that's her name, you missed the best evening of Holocaust jokes ever. And she said, I hate Holocaust jokes, and she went out to have a shower. And when she went out, on the last frame of the book, I drove her walking from the back and saying in a balloon, you are all sick. Which is right. And the book was somehow, and I'm ready to say it, a sort of personal therapy. People said me after the book, after they read it, you know, Michel, by the way, you made a therapy of the book. I said, yes, I did it, but usually you pay for a therapy. I was paid for it. So it's not really a therapy. This is, to me, something significant that I wanted to leave after me. Having the story inside of me was not good enough. Not telling it was a mistake. And making out of it a comics with humor was the best thing I could do in life. And then, what happens, what made the book now be published in Spanish is because Orly herself is a second generation. And she reads Hebrew, and when she read the Hebrew version of the book, she contacted me. It's another story for another meeting next year. It's a long story. And she said, I want to translate it to Spanish. And I agreed at once. I thought that was so unexpected for me. So I'm very glad that it exists. I think that the strength of the book is that I talk about the period of history, but through the eyes of a little boy, of a little teenager, and a personal story. This is my family story. This is not the history of the Holocaust. This is not the history of the Second World War. This is our small history that shows how this suffering affects the generation. And I think that there's no one single country in the world where people haven't suffered. And I think it makes it universal. It makes it very human. It makes it very accessible to non-Jewish readers. So I'm very glad that it exists not only in Hebrew, but also in Spanish. And the last thing I'd like to say is that I visited two things since I'm here. This is my third day. The first thing was the Museum of Anthropology, which is a wonderful museum, and I wish to go back. I have so much to know about Mexico and the culture, the Maya and the Aztec. I'm totally amazed by that. I'm passionate by that, to know more about that. And I visited the Frida camp, because to me Mexico was Frida. That's all what I knew about Mexico. Sorry to say that. But now I want to know more, and I hope to come back. I'm working on a new book, which is called Falafel with hot spicy sauce, which is about my Israeli experience, which is a book in which I explain why did I move to Israel, and what has happened to me, because when I emigrated to Israel, you also mentioned that somehow, that was a small socialist country. I was a young socialist, a secular Jew, and it became a different country. It became a country of more conflict, of more extremism, more religious. Socialism almost does not exist. I don't recognize this country, but still it is my country. And I need to fight for it, for peace and for a better future. Thank you very much.